Guess who had a birthday recently? It is Clay Henry, who joins us on halftime here, somewhere out in the mountains of North Arkansas. Clay, I wished it to you personally over a text, but for our listeners, too, I would like to wish you a very happy belated birthday, and how are you?
I'm good. This is my birthday week, so it still is good. We have birthday weeks now.
You do that? You do the week leading into the week after the birthday too?
No, not me, but everybody else in my family seems to. And the way it works is, okay, one daughter might be available one night, for, like, this is when my wife has a birthday. And so that, that night we have a birthday party. And then the other daughter might be available 2 days later, and so then we have another one. And then for her actual birthday, then I'm for sure going to be there, right? So Jean and Sarah actually went to Gulf Shores for the birthday, so they missed the birthday party that night. So we're going to have another one.
Party, man. I mean, that just sounds like what summer is supposed to be about.
Well, it's just an excuse to have a nice meal.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. So, you got to ask the general question here. When you saw in the news yesterday about Southern California and UCLA joining the Big Ten, and then it became fact in a matter of like 6 hours that the Big Ten unanimously, sent the invitation and let them in for 2024. What's your reaction to this?
Well, those two schools to be in the Big Ten makes about as much sense as me, moving to Thailand and starting a sports writing company. I mean, they don't fit, but I guess that's where we're at right now, right?
And you know what? I think that's the way that I've decided to go with it, too, because, I mean, I view it, I think, a little bit of the way that you do, too. I thought that college sports was based on geography, at least the leagues, but I guess once we started to see the Big Ten encroaching further east and going all the way to the East Coast, and the ACC, going into the middle of the country in Louisville.
Or the Big 12 being in West Virginia.
In West Virginia, that's right, and the SEC moving more to the middle of the country, too. Geography, I guess, just doesn't mean anything anymore. But then, I mean, when you talk about, I mean, how many? There's an entire time zone between the rest of the Big Ten and the two schools that are coming in. So I can see where you're coming from there, man.
Yeah, I think that the way I view it, it's gonna be for football and basketball. They're gonna just sail along great. They'll have road games, and they'll go play those road games, and the fans, some of them will go, some of them won't. The fans from the Big Ten area, they love to go to California. I mean, Wisconsin, Michigan, for the Rose Bowl, they pack it out. So, but they won't keep doing that forever. There'll be an occasional trip now and then that they'll make. But for all the other sports, the UCLA and USC, their players are going to play road matches and road games and volleyball and all the other sports, and the parents aren't going to get to go, or they're going to ring up huge debt in doing it. So I feel sorry for that aspect of what college sports is, and maybe NIL for those schools. The parents will take advantage of the NIL money and they'll be able to travel, but that's not really what the money's intended for. I don't really get it for the other sports. And, they may play, the bulk of their matches or games out of conference and not play, anything but, say, the conference tournaments. I don't know, Phil. Drew, I don't really get it yet.
I think there's a lot of that in my head. I think there's a lot of that in the the minds of the people that write analysis about this. There's so much out there that's unknown, so we're just left to project what it's going to look like. But one thing's for certain, and Ruskin and Zach brought this up yesterday, and they're so right about this. Arkansas is in a great place because of the decision 30 years ago, because of Frank Broyles and Roy Kramer and getting over here. Look at what's happened to the rest of the Southwest Conference since then, and all those schools and leagues, even Texas, that had to go look for a new home, as Texas did here in the SEC. And Arkansas is just kind of sitting pretty like, yeah, we like it here. You'll like it here too.
Yeah, I can remember, maybe every 2 years there'd be the conversation of, well, Arkansas should be in the Big 12 or the Big 8 or whatever you want to call it. And I never thought that was right, but you'd hear people say it, and I don't know whether they said it in conviction or they just said it because it was like, I'm going to be contrary. But the SEC always looked right to me, and I can remember my father explaining that in the 40s and 50s, he traveled with the Travelers in the old Southern Association. Going and traveling and covering road minor league baseball was a big thing back then because they had to have the story and about the only way to travel. And he always said going through Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, and Mississippi were, the Southern Association teams, that Arkansas always matched there and didn't match in the Southwest Conference and matched there. And then when Arkansas went to the SEC, he said, it's the right place at the right time. Just wait a few years and you'll know that it feels right. I think it finally does. Now, you got to be good. You better bring it. You can't lollygag around and be an average team in the SEC, or you're gonna get it handed to you. But I think Arkansas is there right now. They've got the right coaches, and I've always thought it was just a matter of having the right coaches.
Yeah, and Clay, for someone in my age bracket generation, I've never known Arkansas not to be in the SEC. So it obviously, to people around my age, it feels natural because that's ultimately all that we've ever had. And, the Big Ten, they opening, actually let's start with Greg Sankey kind of opening this door last year with Texas and OU, and then now the Big Ten kicking it wide open. Feels like it's going to be a long time till realignment, that door closes for at least some good. So it doesn't feel like this is now the ball is back in the SEC's court. Big Ten, they've made their counter move, and now the SEC needs to figure out what to do to remain on top? Or do you think Greg Sankey is content with staying at the 16 that he'll have in 2 years?
Well, I think it depends on who's interested. You've got, Texas and Texas A&M, so the fact that they would go against Texas A&M and bring in Texas, Texas A&M didn't want that.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've always heard that, that perhaps Clemson or Florida State would be interested in the SEC, but Florida would not want Florida State. South Carolina wouldn't want Clemson. But we've seen the rest of the league vote to override, the blackball attempt or the veto attempt by Texas A&M. So could they do that to take in Clemson and Florida State? Because those are the two that I would see that, might be in the ACC. And the ACC they're kind of, unless they would somehow lure in Notre Dame on a permanent basis outside, with football, that the ACC is the one that looks like they need a power move to lock up a little bit more money, or and I don't see anybody that's out there for the ACC except Notre Dame that would make a difference. So would Clemson and Florida State say, instead of making $40 million, would we like to make $80 million?
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, they would, and that might bump the pie a little bit for the rest of the SEC. So those are things that are out there that I wonder about. Not that I've heard anybody say it, but as soon as Texas broke through against Texas A&M, I wondered if there were some ACC teams that might break through against an in-state rival and join the SEC.
Mm-hmm. And you bring up the point of really who would make a splash. And right now, if you just look at between the ACC, the Big 12, and the Pac-12, there's really only just a handful of teams that make that big splash, like USC and UCLA. You got, Oregon,
Yeah.
Washington, Miami, Florida State, Clemson. You bring up. Does West Virginia make a little bit of splash? I mean, if you're the Big Ten
No, I
or the
don't think
ACC,
so.
I mean, it makes
I
sense
don't think
geographically.
so.
No.
No, I mean, I don't think that's enough TV sets that would bring more revenue, and it would just split the pie more. You need somebody. You need heavyweights. Say, somebody that brings something significant, like say North Carolina would, or I don't see. Or you start to see some Big Ten teams, let's say Penn State, not happy or so. I don't know. But maybe in the Northeast corridor, Boston College or somebody like that. Maybe you could lure 4 ACC teams, and you've got a 20-team conglomerate that controls everything. That you play your own championship and you don't even need anybody else. You're starting to hear things like that, from Sankey and others that, we're looking out there and, in outer space for something. Just something that you would never, that we're just going to have our own association. It's the Southeastern Conference, and that is big time football, and everybody else is kind of left drifting. So I don't know that's going to happen, but I think the next domino that falls is we're just going to scratch our head and it's like, well, we didn't see that coming.
Yeah, the way to handle these things now is that anything that seems that it can't happen, well, maybe it really can't happen. Kind of crazy.
No, I think that's right, Phil.
Clay, I've already looked at. I've looked. You want to get the 16-team SEC to like 24. It's pretty easy to do that. Clemson, Florida State, Miami, Georgia Tech out of the ACC,
North Carolina.
Or North Carolina. You could go Oklahoma State out of the Big 12, bring them over along with OU potentially.
TCU, Texas Tech also got thrown there. Baylor could be a team that I think fits in that too, right?
Potentially. If it's all about getting extra TV markets, you might look at the Arizona schools then too, maybe. Because I think you're right, Clay.
Yeah,
a lot of it is where you don't have an imprint for TV market. The Big Ten is getting one they didn't have.
No, I think that's right. I think it's all about, the TV sets and the contract. That's where the money is. And, it's going to be something different, the model. And we're envisioning, networks like ESPN and CBS, but I don't know that at some point, Apple or, somebody jumps in that we hadn't even thought about. And I just see in MLS going to do just a total streaming deal with Apple, and they're leaving the main networks, presumably for, something that you're just going to pay a streaming fee, and they're going to jack up your Apple. If you want all the soccer, that's where you're going to get it. I don't know. Somebody's going to do something that we didn't see coming, and us old timers like me, it's like, we got to stream everything now. Streaming? What is streaming?
Well, the other question I was going to ask too, and we're almost up against the break here. The other question too is, does this lessen your interest in college sports, Clay? You're obviously still professionally attached to college sports, but as a fan, like, take your journalist hat off for a moment, put on a fan cap. Does this disinterest you in college sports or college football, any specifically?
And I really enjoyed college football and college basketball last year. I don't think I'm going to go away. And I watched the College World Series, my living room, and the coverage was so awesome. I thought that, and I couldn't get enough of it. I wanted to know behind the scenes stuff. I have found myself watching more of the SEC network now that Arkansas is relevant in basketball and in football. That want to see their highlights right there besides Alabama's. I don't think so, Phil. I think it's going to be better, not worse.
Okay, I just don't think I'll get that answer from a lot of folks, but I'm glad I got that answer from you because that's kind of the way that I'm looking at it.
It depends on if your team is good. You feel relevant and you want more of it.
Our partners at BetOnline continue to be the #1 source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's Wimbledon Finals, Major League Baseball, the latest fighting news, and even next season's early NFL futures. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code BLEAV. That's BLEAV to get the bonus and get into the action. Bet online, where the game starts.